High above the clouds, where the blue fades into infinity and time seems to stand still, some planes vanish without a single clue. I'm Jhon, and this is Plane Crashed, a channel that dives deep into the darkest mysteries of aviation history. Imagine a flight that takes off perfectly, passengers chatting, engines roaring, and then silence. No wreckage, no distress call, just disappearance. These are stories that defy logic and haunt the skies forever. The story of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 begins not just as a tragedy, but as one of the most haunting mysteries ever to grip the modern world. It was March 8, 2014, when the Boeing 737-200ER, a marvel of modern aviation technology, prepared for its routine journey from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to Beijing, China. On board were 239 souls, passengers and crew from all walks of life, families, business travelers, children, each unaware that they were about to vanish into the great unknown. The night was calm, the weather clear, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary as Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid guided the aircraft down the runway at 12:41 a.m. local time. The plane lifted into the darkness, a streak of light disappearing into the still air. But just 38 minutes later, at 1:19 a.m., a simple, calm radio transmission would become the last words ever heard from MH370. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments later, the plane disappeared from radar screens, and with it began a mystery that would consume nations, investigators, and millions of hearts around the world. Air traffic control in Malaysia noticed the plane's sudden silence, but at first it was shrugged off. Radio lapses, after all, happen occasionally. But as time passed, concern turned into alarm. When Vietnam's air traffic controllers tried to make contact and received no response, it became clear something was terribly wrong. The transponder, which continuously sends a plane's position and altitude, had gone dark. Military radar would later reveal that instead of continuing northeast toward Beijing, MH370 had made a sharp, deliberate turn westward, crossing the Malay Peninsula and heading toward the Andaman Sea. This single move transformed what might have been an accident into an enigma. For reasons no one could explain, the aircraft flew for hours, 7, maybe 8, after losing communication, traversing one of the most remote stretches of ocean on the planet. What was happening on board during those silent hours? Was it a hijacking, a mechanical failure, or something even more chilling? Families gathered at airports, staring at departure boards that never changed. The waiting area in Beijing turned into a sea of tears and confusion as relatives clung to hope, praying that the plane had simply made an emergency landing somewhere remote. But hope began to crumble as the hours turned into days. Malaysia Airlines issued a statement no one wanted to believe. MH370 was missing. It was not just lost, it had vanished without a trace. Within days, a multinational search began, one of the largest in aviation history. Over 30 countries joined forces, deploying ships, submarines, and satellites to comb the Indian Ocean. Search zones shifted constantly as new data emerged. Satellite handshakes, automated signals between the aircraft and ground stations revealed that the plane had likely turned south and flown. Into the vast emptiness of the southern Indian Ocean, this discovery narrowed the search area, but even then, it spanned an area larger than many countries. The ocean there is unforgiving, deep and desolate, a place where secrets can sleep forever. Yet the families waited. They gathered daily in Kuala Lumpur hotels, clinging to every rumor, every whisper of debris found, every sighting. Conspiracy theories exploded across the internet. Some claimed the plane had been hijacked and hidden by a government. Others suggested it had been shot down or that the pilot deliberately crashed it. Investigators looked closely at Captain Zahari's background, analyzing his simulator, his behavior, and his final flight plan. Some data from his personal simulator showed routes into the southern Indian Ocean, eerily similar to MH370's final path. Was it a coincidence or a dark premonition? No one could say for sure. The families of the passengers were divided between anger and despair. In Beijing, desperate relatives clashed with authorities, demanding answers. They accused Malaysia Airlines and the Malaysian government of hiding the truth. The company faced unprecedented scrutiny, as did Boeing and aviation regulators worldwide. Every new lead seemed to collapse into dust. Months passed, and not a single confirmed piece of debris was found. But then, more than a year later, a breakthrough came. On July 29, 2015, a fragment of an airplane wing called a flaperon washed up on Réunion Island, off the coast of Africa, thousands of miles from the suspected crash site. The part was confirmed to belong to MH370. Over the following years, more fragments appeared on beaches in Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania, each a silent reminder of the aircraft's final, unknown journey. But even as evidence of destruction surfaced, the central question remained unanswered. Why? Why did MH370 deviate from its course? Why did it fly for hours after losing contact? And who, if anyone, was in control? Some experts argued that a sudden decompression or fire might have incapacitated the crew and passengers, leaving the plane flying on autopilot until fuel ran out. Others pointed to deliberate action, a carefully executed plan to disappear. But if it was deliberate, then who was behind it? Captain Zahari was described by friends as kind and professional, though investigators did not rule out the possibility of a planned act. Still, no conclusive motive was ever found. Data from the satellite handshakes suggested the plane gradually descended until it likely ran out of fuel and plunged into the ocean, but even that remains a theory. In 2018, after more than 4 years of searching and over 120,000 square kilometers of seabed scanned, the official search was suspended. The ocean had won. What was supposed to be the most technologically advanced search operation in history ended with nothing more than fragments and heartbreak. For the families, the suspension was not closure, it was an open wound. Many refused to accept that their loved ones were gone without proof. Vigils continued every year, their candles reflecting the light of hope that refuses to die. The world's aviation community was shaken. How could a massive commercial jet simply vanish in an era of global tracking, satellites, and real-time data? MH370 exposed deep flaws in the aviation system, gaps in radar coverage, communication delays, and dependence on outdated technology. In its aftermath, new measures were proposed to ensure that no aircraft could ever vanish so completely again. But for many, that was too little, too late. The final report by the Malaysian government, released in 2018, provided no definitive answers. It admitted that the deviation from flight path was likely deliberate, but did not identify who was responsible. It concluded with chilling simplicity: the cause of the disappearance cannot be determined. And so, the story of MH370 remains suspended between fact and legend. A tale of technology and mystery colliding in the dark skies above the Indian Ocean. Somewhere beneath the waves lies the answer, perhaps in the wreckage that still rests on the ocean floor, unreachable and unseen. The tragedy left behind more than questions. It left a legacy of fear and fascination. People all around the world became obsessed with the flight's final moments, documentaries and simulations attempting to piece together the last seconds before it vanished. Was there panic in the cabin? Did the passengers know what was happening? Did anyone survive for even a moment after the final descent? The ocean offers no response. Today, MH370 is more than a lost plane. It is a symbol of humanity's fragile grasp on certainty. Even in an age of GPS, satellites, and digital communication, a massive jetliner can still slip beyond our reach. The families continue to wait, some holding on to hope that someday, somewhere, a piece of evidence will surface that tells them what really happened that night. The rest of the world continues to look up at the sky and wonder how something so large, so advanced, could simply disappear. The flight path of MH370 may be gone, But its story continues to echo through every takeoff and every silent stretch of ocean, reminding us that even in our most advanced age, there are mysteries the sky still refuses to give up. On a cool afternoon of December 5, 1945, 5 sleek U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers taxied into position at Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale in Florida. It was supposed to be a routine training exercise. Flight 19, as it was designated, was one of dozens conducted that week. The sky above was clear, the ocean below calm, and the 14 men aboard the 5 aircraft had no idea they were about to step into one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Their instructor, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, was an experienced pilot, a combat veteran of World War II, confident and capable. The mission was simple: fly east over the Atlantic for a bombing run, turn north, then back west to base, a triangular course over open water. Nothing in that plan hinted at disaster. At 2:10 p.m., Flight 19 took off one by one, their engines roaring into the coastal wind as they disappeared beyond the shoreline. Back at base, radio operators logged their departure, expecting a routine exercise completed within a few hours. But as the sun began to dip and static filled the radio channels, an unease settled across the control tower that would soon turn into panic. At first, communication was normal. The planes completed their bombing practice near the Bahamas and turned north for the second leg. But by mid-afternoon, a troubling transmission came through. Taylor's voice, usually calm and steady, carried confusion. He reported that his compass was malfunctioning, that he wasn't sure where they were. "Both my compasses are out," he said, "and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida." The operator tried to guide him home, instructing him to fly west, toward the setting sun. But Taylor, for reasons no one would ever understand, insisted he was over the Florida Keys and that flying west would take him further out to sea. He believed his instruments, not his instincts, and continued leading his squadron deeper into the Atlantic. The other pilots, younger and less experienced, trusted their commander completely. Their training told them never to break formation, even in uncertainty. But as the minutes passed, their radio messages revealed growing anxiety. One of the students was heard saying, "If we just fly west, we'll get home." But Taylor disagreed, convinced that something was wrong with their location. That moment, the decision to trust confusion over logic sealed their fate. Back at Fort Lauderdale, air controllers realized something terrible was happening. Multiple radio stations picked up fragments of transmissions, but the signals were faint, distorted by static and distance. The Navy scrambled search and rescue efforts as daylight faded. A PBM Mariner flying boat, carrying 13 men, was dispatched to search for the missing Avengers. That plane too vanished without a trace, moments after takeoff. A ship stationed nearby later reported seeing an explosion in the sky and a patch of burning oil on the surface of the sea. The rescue aircraft had exploded mid-air, likely due to a fuel vapor ignition, a cruel twist that deepened the night's tragedy. Now 6 planes and 27 men were missing in a single evening. As the hours passed, radio operators continued to pick up fragments from Flight 19. Taylor's voice crackled through the static. "We can't tell where we are. Everything is strange. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should." It was as if they were flying through a dreamscape, a place where navigation and logic had ceased to exist. At around 6:20 p.m., another pilot was heard saying, "It looks like we're entering white water. We're completely lost." Those would be among the last words ever heard from Flight 19. The final message came sometime after 7 p.m. The sea was rough, daylight gone and fuel running low. "All planes close up tight," Taylor ordered. "When the first plane's fuel runs out, we all go down together." Then silence. Throughout the night, search aircraft scoured the waters. Ships patrolled the last known coordinates, but the vast Atlantic offered no clues. At sunrise, more than 200 planes and ships joined the hunt in what became one of the largest air-sea rescue operations in history. But there was nothing, no debris, no oil slick, no signal. It was as though the entire squadron had been erased from existence. The disappearance of Flight 19 stunned the nation. Newspapers across America ran headlines about the lost patrol and the Navy's vanished squadron. Families of the missing men clung to hope, waiting for any sign that their sons or husbands had survived, perhaps stranded on a remote island. But as days turned into weeks, hope faded into legend. Investigators struggled to piece together what had gone wrong. The official Navy report concluded that the planes had likely run out of fuel and crashed into the sea after becoming hopelessly lost. But even that explanation left more questions than answers. How could 5 experienced aviators flying state-of-the-art aircraft all become disoriented at once? Why had their compasses failed simultaneously? And why was no wreckage ever found? Not a single life vest, raft, or fuselage fragment. The waters east of Florida are shallow, yet no evidence surfaced despite exhaustive searches. Then there were the strange radio transmissions, filled with references to odd lights, distorted landscapes, and confusion over direction. Some of the men described the ocean as different or unusual, as if they were flying into another world. These eerie details fed speculation that something extraordinary had happened, something beyond mechanical failure or human error. As the story spread, it collided with the rising fascination surrounding a region already rumored to swallow ships and planes without explanation, the Bermuda Triangle. Stretching roughly between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, the triangle became infamous after Flight 19's disappearance. Over the years, it would be blamed for dozens of unexplained vanishings. The idea captured public imagination. Could there be something unnatural about this stretch of ocean, a place where compasses spin and time itself warps? Scientists and skeptics dismissed such ideas, pointing instead to navigational errors, unpredictable weather, and magnetic anomalies. But to those who lost loved ones, logic offered little comfort. The mystery was too strange, too complete. Lieutenant Taylor became the focus of much scrutiny. Some claimed he had been disoriented due to fatigue or stress. Others pointed out that he had requested not to fly that day, citing concerns about his familiarity with the region. It was also revealed that he had previously gotten lost over water during another training mission. The Navy, however, refused to blame him entirely. Their report described the cause as undetermined, reflecting the uncertainty that surrounded every aspect of the incident. As time passed, Flight 19's legend grew. Books, films, and documentaries portrayed it as the ultimate aviation enigma. Theories multiplied: alien abductions, time warps, secret military experiments, magnetic distortions, even underwater civilizations pulling the planes from the sky. Each theory seemed more outlandish than the last, yet none could be completely dismissed because the facts themselves were so inexplicable. How could 5 large aircraft simply disappear in broad daylight, leaving no trace even after massive searches? In the decades that followed, multiple expeditions attempted to locate the wreckage. Sonar scans, deep-sea dives, and magnetometer surveys were conducted across the Atlantic, yet nothing definitive was ever found. On several occasions, wreckage from other downed planes was mistakenly identified as Flight 19, only to be disproven later. The true resting place of the lost squadron remains undiscovered. The story also gave birth to one of aviation's most chilling patterns. Other planes and ships have vanished in the same general area under similarly strange conditions. From commercial airliners to small private planes, the Bermuda Triangle continued to collect mysteries like shadows on the sea. Some experts argue that the region's unpredictable weather, strong ocean currents, and magnetic interference can easily disorient pilots. Others point to methane gas eruptions from the ocean floor that could cause rapid loss of buoyancy, swallowing aircraft whole. But none of these theories have ever been proven in connection with Flight 19. What makes the story so haunting is its human dimension. Those 14 young aviators were ordinary men, trained to survive the worst combat imaginable, yet powerless against the confusion that overtook them. Their voices, captured in fading radio logs, reveal not panic but a slow, creeping realization that they were flying into the unknown. Taylor's repeated insistence that his instruments were wrong and his surroundings unfamiliar paints the picture of a man battling not just navigation errors, but something deeper, perhaps the psychological effects of spatial disorientation, or perhaps the chilling awareness that they were somewhere they weren't supposed to be. For the families left behind, the Navy's explanations brought little solace. Many of them believed their loved ones had survived on islands or at sea, and for years, letters poured into the Navy requesting updates, search renewals, and reconsiderations. None ever bore fruit. The men of Flight 19 were officially declared dead on December 17, 1945. Their bodies and planes never recovered. Lieutenant Taylor's mother refused to accept that her son was at fault, and the Navy eventually changed its report to say, "Cause unknown." As decades rolled by, Flight 19 became a symbol of the unexplained. Woven into the mythology of the Bermuda Triangle, it inspired countless theories, from secret government cover-ups to interdimensional rifts. Yet even as the myths grew, historians and aviation experts continued to revisit the case, trying to strip away the layers of legend. Some modern analyses using reconstructed weather patterns and navigation charts suggest the planes may have indeed flown far out to sea, misidentifying the Bahamas for the Florida Keys. When they turned north, they unknowingly headed deeper into the Atlantic. By the time Taylor realized the error, fuel levels were too low to return. They likely ditched into rough seas where the waves quickly pulled them under. Still, even this plausible scenario fails to explain why no trace has ever been found. What remains undeniable is the impact of the story. Flight 19 transformed from a wartime training tragedy into an enduring legend that symbolizes the ocean's vastness and mystery. It reminds us that even with technology, training, and experience, the natural world retains the power to confound and consume. The Bermuda Triangle, whether a real anomaly or a myth born from fear and coincidence, owes much of its fame to those 5 lost Avengers and the 14 men who vanished with them. Today, when modern pilots fly over that stretch of ocean, they sometimes glance at their instruments a little longer, double-check their bearings, and think about the squadron that never came home. Their story lives on not just in history books, but in every whisper of static over the Atlantic, in every searchlight that sweeps the dark waves, still hoping to catch a glint of metal that might reveal the truth. Flight 19 endures as a reminder of humanity's fragile relationship with the sky and the sea, 2 realms that we have conquered yet never fully understood. Somewhere beneath those shifting waves may lie the remains of 5 aircraft frozen in time, silent witnesses to a mystery that refuses to fade. The ocean keeps its secrets well, and the Bermuda Triangle, whether real or imagined, remains a symbol of how easily certainty can vanish when man meets the deep, endless unknown from the cold. Silent depths of the Indian Ocean to the eerie stillness of the Bermuda Triangle. The skies have proven that even in the age of progress and technology, nature still holds the final word. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 and Flight 19 are not just stories of planes that vanished. They are reminders of how fragile our connection to the world truly is when we leave the ground behind. Both mysteries stretch across time and space, united by one haunting truth. Sometimes the sky takes more than it returns. As we look up and watch another plane disappear into the clouds, we can't help but wonder what really happened up there, and could it ever happen again? These are the stories that keep us searching, that keep us questioning, and that remind us that the greatest mysteries don't always happen in darkness. They happen in plain sight, in the endless silence above.